All right, guys, what is up? So I wanted to do my prediction video on the fight that was just announced about a week ago between Wilder and Chisora at the O2 Arena on April 4th. So the fight is billed as 100 because it is both Wilder and Chisora's 50th career fight, which will make a total of 100th fight between the both of them. And I actually think it's funny because I think it should be billed more as 50-50 because the fight itself, I believe, is actually 50-50 in terms of, the odds of who's going to win. Um, but yeah, I basically just want to get into it, try to go through it as quick as I can. I don't want the video to drag out too long. Um, Very quickly, I'm just going to go over where both fighters are at in their career, and then we're going to go over some styles and just kind of how they've been in recent form and how I think it's going to clash on the night of the fight. So basically, really quickly, we have Deontay Wilder. He started in 2008. He's currently 40 years old. And Chisora started in 2007, his career, and he's currently 42. So a little bit more seasoned fighters. They're a little bit more on the higher bracket of age. Um, so if we look at Wilder's resume real quick, so uh, at this point, it's pretty well known that Wilder has a little bit of a padded record, just to put it nicely. A lot of these early wins are against absolutely nobodies, just complete cans that have had absolutely no chance against Wilder. And I actually do think it does say something about Wilder's level in itself that he is having, you know, that the fact that there's no adversity in a lot of these early fights is actually a good sign. It does show that he's at a higher level than these guys. But still, like he could have stepped up the competition much sooner, especially since he was a bronze medalist. Most Olympians don't. You know, it makes sense if you don't really have much of an amateur career, but for an Olympian, it was kind of silly. He was actually even down in this fight, and he was pretty badly hurt by a guy who's 17 and 20. Is he a power puncher? Okay, 11 knockouts. I mean, he has power, so it can happen. It can happen. He got up and won the fight. Um, so yeah, we go up. The first notable opponent on his record is Audley Harrison, which he bombed him out in the first round, and Harrison, uh, he may or may not have actually been a good boxer, but he just did not show up for a lot of nights in his career, and this was probably one of them, and it ended up being his last fight. So I don't really give Wilder a lot of credit for this win. I'm sure there would have been a lot of guys that night who would have been happy to, bomb out Audley Harrison the way Wilder did. So it's not really a good win. Um, Sergey Lakovic, I hope I said that right. This fight, he knocked him out in the first round. Again, you know, a decent opponent if you're coming up. He probably should have taken all these fights like a lot sooner. Like all these fights, these next like 5 fights here should have probably happened like 15 fights ago. I think Wilder was ready. But a former world champion, he's in diminishing form, but it's okay when you're coming up to take a fight like that. Takes fight against some journeyman here. He beats Malik Scott, which is a decent win. Um, Jason Gavern, it's a nothing win. And then, he beats Stavern by decision. Um, Shows that he could box a little bit. Stavern was the champion at the time. Um, he fights Milena, Duhapis, whatever you want to pronounce it as. Spilka, Areola, Washington, Stavern. So this little run here, about that, this 2 year run here, where he's fighting contenders, but they're not like genuine contenders. It's more like they're finding guys out there that they're good enough to kind of get in the ring and maybe give Wilder some competitiveness, but they're not really like a genuine world title challenger. I mean, none of these guys really earned a world title shot. They're just kind of guys that exist that have pretty good looking records on paper, but realistically, their records themselves aren't very good. I know Spilka has a couple good wins, I think, and Areola as well. But the rest of these fighters, I really can't say that. Um, so like, I would say like they're okay wins. You know, if you're a champion and you take a fight like this, you know, every so often, that's fine. But it's just the fact that he's going on this streak of wins against these guys without any kind of unification fight at the time with Joshua. So that was a big problem at the time. Now Ortiz, the Luis Ortiz win, can't take anything from him. That was a tough fight, and I think Wilder did show his level in this fight. Never said that Wilder was a bad fighter because he's taking these fights, but he should have been fighting contenders like Luis Ortiz, maybe like 2 fights after the Severn, um, the Severn win, the first Severn win. So takes a good win there, and then he does the draw with Fury. I think he, I think he lost his fight narrowly, but I'm actually fine with the draw. Um, because there's several factors that go into it. I don't want to get into it, but um, he fights Brazil, which again was it's like that's like a fill in, just like a stay busy. That should be like a stay busy, and it kind of was like that's like a stay busy type of fight. It's not you're not it's not like you're going against some guy who's really going to get in there and try to take your belt, who's a threat to your belt. But it's just it's these are like this is a stay busy fight after the Fury fight. Just to get a win back after taking a draw, and then he fights Luis Ortiz again, which you gotta give him credit because the first Ortiz fight was tough, and he actually let Ortiz fight him again, and it was Ortiz was shutting him out, and then Wilder he did what he does and he landed that right hand and knocked him out. Then this is where Wilder's career goes downhill. He gets wrecked by Fury twice. Um, takes a confidence boosting fight against Hellenius, which is again an okay win. Um, and then this is the Parker fight, which he didn't throw any punches. The Zhilai Zhang fight, which it's kind of funny. Like I've always thought this. It's like in heavyweight boxing, people act like once a fighter's a heavyweight, that like thermodynamics just do no longer exist. Like, I mean, look, this we still got like a 70-pound difference here. Like, I mean, I really don't think this Zhang was a good matchup for Wilder. Um, it really wasn't wise. Like, if you're coming off a loss and you're trying to get back on the in the win column, you don't fight a guy who's 70 pounds heavier than you and probably punches harder than you do. So, I mean, this was a bad idea. This whole fight was a bad idea. And then he does what he should have done, which was take the confidence boosting fight. He fights a journeyman here who, Waller. We're actually going to get into that fight in a second. And now we're at Chisora. So let's go over Chisora's career. So Chisora, you know, fighting as a British fighter, he takes his first couple 10 or so fights, and then he fights Danny Williams, who was a top British contender, and he knocks him out in the second round. So that was a good win for British boxing at the time. You fight Sam Sexton, you know, kind of so he lost the UG 83, knocked out with David Price. So this looks like just like a British level type of a journeyman. Looks like he actually okay, so he actually fought him twice. So yeah, no, he's taken reasonable fights, for the first like 10 or so fights, and then he actually fights Tyson Fury, which I respect this a lot because you know instead of continuing to take these relatively easy fights, Fury and Chisora were both two of the best heavyweight boxers in the UK at the time, and they fought. They actually fought, and Fury beat him, and then clearly he takes a complete just nothing fight just to get a win back. He actually went the distance with this guy. So this guy right here is an example of a journeyman in boxing who fights gives people fights primarily for the purpose of giving them rounds. Like up and comers. Yeah, you see all these records here. So he's fighting guys who are coming up, low experience, just to give them rounds, or in this case, just to give someone a win. So you got to give these guys a lot of respect. Okay, these guys these guys deserve respect in boxing. They have their purpose, and you can see one of their purposes being fulfilled here. So he takes a fight against Robert Helenius, who was on Wilder's record. This is when Helenius was a lot younger. Helenius was undefeated at the time, but Wilder did beat him in this. Chisora did beat him in this fight. But I believe this fight was in Finland. Helenius is Finnish, so we kind of know what happened there. He actually goes the distance against Klitschko, which was pretty impressive because Vitaly Klitschko usually finished all his opponents. So he's kind of showing that he's a bit of a durable guy even at this time, going the distance with Fury, Helenius, Klitschko. He's showing that he's a tough guy, but then he actually gets stopped by David Haye. So he goes on this streak here, just taking some, and it makes sense. He actually beats Malik Scott here for the first time. Malik Scott was previously undefeated, so that's a good win. But you could see here, it makes sense. So if you get beat 3 times in a row, you got to take some fights just to get back, just to kind of get some confidence back, just some fight some journeyman, and then immediately after goes on a 5-fight win streak here, fights Tyson Fury again. Fury was starting to really come into form here. Stops Chisora. A corner stoppage, not a knockout. Again, Chisora takes just some nothing fights. Then he actually fights Kubrat Pulev. Split decision. I've never seen the fight, but a close decision against a top contender. Again, another nothing fight, and then right into a fight with Dillian White, and split decision loss. Another nothing fight, and then right into a fight with Ajit Kabiel. A very close fight, and we know how good Kabiel is. So that's a pretty good showing from Chisora. And then nothing fight, beats Carlos Takam, and then he fights Dillian White again. He gets knocked out in a pretty outstanding fight. So you're kind of starting to see a theme of Chisora is this guy. He just wants to fight the best. He's constantly fighting the best. He's getting beat. He might take just a fight or two just to stay in shape and just get a win back on his record, and then he's going right to these top contenders. So you could see here he's taking this guy's actually still active. He's taking some fights here and there. Just some nothing fights. Just some fights just to stay busy, but he's constantly trying to fight the best. So and here we go. I just want to get into this fight. He fights Usyk at Usyk's second fight at heavyweight, really his first true test at heavyweight. And he gives Usyk one of the toughest fights he's had in his whole career, period. He really pushed Usyk in this fight, and he actually, he had a real chance at winning this fight, but Usyk's skill, expertise, experience took over. And I shouldn't say experience, but the fact that Usyk was faster and just better shape, better conditioning, definitely took over in this fight, and Usyk was able to pull it out the bag. But Chisora really did push Usyk in this fight, and some people actually think Chisora won the fight. It's a little bit of rubbish, Usyk won, but this was a good showing from Chisora, and that earned him a fight against Parker. He takes 2 fights against Parker here, Joseph Parker, and both of them were competitive efforts. Some people think he won the first fight. The second fight was a little more obvious in Parker's favor. And then riding a 3-fight losing streak, He immediately goes into a fight in a rematch against Kubrat Pulev, beats him by split decision. You know, I don't know if he actually really won the fight. It was a close fight. I got to rewatch it. But right after that, he goes into a trilogy fight against Tyson Fury. Loses 3 fights, beats a guy by split decision, which he may or may not have won. Then he fights Tyson Fury again. And, this fight really made no sense. But, I mean, I really think it says a lot about Chisora that even when he's losing, he just constantly gets in the ring with these top fighters, and he gives them, really tough, tests. So for me, he's like a, uh, he's like a journeyman, but he's more than he's like the ultimate journeyman, but like for top fighters. He'll fight absolutely anybody, and when he does, he always gives them a tough fight, whether he wins or loses. So 36-13. It's a pretty deceptive record. I mean, the guy's a genuine top fighter, and so we see here, Chisora's been in decent form for his age. He takes fight against Washington. Then he fights Joe Joyce, which was a good win, and then he beats Otto Wallin, which was another good win. So he gets 2 good wins here, and here we are. We're fighting Deontay Wilder. So basically, what I just did, I just went over both the resumes. Um, if you want to, skip that, I'm gonna leave a timestamp in the video. But basically, I just wanted to go over both these guys' resumes, just so you kind of know where they're at in their career and what their general level of opposition has been, and how well they've done against those guys. So I think Chisora and Wilder are. I want to say Chisora has shown that he's at a slightly higher level because of the quality of opponents he's had, and just the different styles he's gone against, and the fact that he's done very well against multiple different styles. Just Wilder's demonstrated that he's a little bit more one-dimensional. And now we're going to get into that. So Chisora is a high-pressure fighter. Okay? He's a high-volume fighter. He comes forward constantly, and he's using pressure. He's using head movement. He's constantly like throwing hooks to the body. He's working the body a lot. He roughs you up. And we're going to go over how that might affect Wilder. So what we have here is we're going to look at the second Fury fight. So this is the first time we're
here in January of 2015.
So basically what I want to show here is Fury is what he's doing here is he's coming forward on Wilder because he knows that Wilder isn't comfortable backing up. He discovered that in the first fight. So you see here, he's coming in, he's using head movement, he's constantly moving in on Wilder and making him back up. And he's a little bit heavier here, probably a little bit stronger. And he's using that size to his advantage. So he's coming forward, he's roughing Wilder up, he's making Wilder uncomfortable. He's exploiting his lack of footwork and his lack of his back foot game. So, you see here. So yeah, he's feigning, he's moving forward, he's making uncomfortable, he's roughing him up in the clinch. So he's making him tired. And Fury's height also probably plays a role in that. The fact that he's able to get above Wilder and lay on him. So we have the knockdown coming up here. So I don't know if Chisora's gonna be able to do that to Wilder. But you could see that, Fury, let's see if we can find more of it. So, Fury's coming forward on Wilder here. So he's making him very uncomfortable. He's getting close. He's smothering his offense. You can see Wilder's really not able to land. And you can see sometimes he's a little bit hesitant too. And that we will get into that. We've seen that Wilder's been a little bit more hesitant on his punches ever since, being hurt the way he's been. So, just kind of want to see if I can show it one more time. So, Wilder, he likes to move forward. He likes to, Wilder likes to be the front footer. He does better when a fighter is fighting on the back foot. If you go and watch the first fight against Fury, it was a major tactical error on Fury's part because what Fury wanted to do is he wanted to be on the back foot. He wanted to make Wilder look silly. He wanted to make him miss, which he was able to, but he wasn't able to, establish himself as much because he's just letting Wilder come at him, and that's what Wilder wants to do. Wilder wants to, he wants to be on the outside. He wants you to be on the back. He wants to be able to like control where you're going. So he has his jab out there, and eventually he's gonna find it and he's gonna detonate his right hand. Because if he chases you around, a 12-round fight, and if the person he's fighting isn't establishing himself, Wilder's probably he's gonna catch you eventually. All right, he has that type of power to erase you, which we saw in the first fight against Fury. But Fury, he made the adjustments in this fight, and he realized that if he wants to beat Wilder, he needs to come forward and he needs to be the bully. He needs to dictate the fight. He needs to be an authority in the ring. You don't have to give Wilder that leeway. You don't have to give Wilder all that I was just kind of losing my train of thought here because I'm bouncing back and forth. But you can't give Wilder that position. You have to back him up and make him uncomfortable, or else he's going to control the fight. And with how powerful he is, it's not wise as a boxer, and you're not going to be as successful against him. So see, yeah. So coming forward, and while they're moving backwards, he's far, far less effective. So I just wanted to show that real quick, and we'll go into how it all ties together in a second.
A lot more.
So this is the Parker fight, and you could see what Parker's doing is Parker's moving forward, and Wilder's on the back foot, and similar to what we just saw Fury do in the second fight, Joseph Parker, he's closing distance on Wilder, and he's smothering his offense. And a very, very common theme with this fight is, you see, he'll duck down, he'll throw an overhand up top, he'll keep Wilder thinking about that right hand, and he's making Wilder very, very hesitant. And you can see he's coming forward, he's pressing the action on Wilder, and Wilder's a lanky guy. His power is he has genuine power. It's an effective, explosive type of power, but when he's moving backwards, he doesn't have the leverage to really, land it at the same explosiveness than if he's moving forward. So he's moving backwards here, and he's trying to bang a little bit, and there you go. See, so you can see just the difference in power. So when Wilder's moving backwards, these punches are bouncing off Parker, really. But then he comes forward, and boom, you could see the difference in the impact that the punch has. So that's why you can't let Wilder come forward, or he will, have a higher chance of landing his power shots. So you can see Wilder. I mean, he hit this. Oh, I mean that was a good shot. Wilder's a tough guy, I'll tell you, but you definitely this is what you see. This is what you should be doing against Wilder. Constant pressure. He can't fight. Wilder cannot fight with the pressure. He cannot fight with that forward pressure. He can't. He's completely compromised here. Completely. Yeah. So basically, what we're seeing here is I'm gonna get into how Chisora, why his style might be wrong for Wilder, but we're gonna get into some other things too that may actually favor Wilder. So, really quickly, let's look at how Chisora fights. So, this is Chisora's last fight against Otto Wallin. So, one thing I'm not going to lie, when I was watching this, and I got to be honest, Chisora does look a little bit slow these days. He definitely isn't the fastest fighter. You can see, his head moving when he's slipping and, bobbing and weaving. His movements are kind of slow. He's kind of like, you can see his balance isn't as good as it used to be. So, he's not fast, he's not slick, but at least he is moving. But one thing that I was thinking that could be a problem for Chisora. So we're about to get into this. So you can see how he's kind of, he's putting the pressure. He's sliding, he's bobbing, he's weaving, and he's coming in. But he's not fast, right? He's not very fast. And like look at this little moment here. Like so when he gets while in the corner. I want to see if he does it again. So he has Wall in the corner here, and as he's coming in, he's moving his head a little bit, but here's what can happen. So just like that, right here. So he's putting good pressure, which could, could be a problem for Waller, but these little moments like this. So he is moving his head still, but right when he comes around with this left hook here, this brief moment, I want you to watch. This brief moment where Chisora comes in with this hook, just like a shot like this. These little moments right here, and this is Chisora's last fight, and he's only slowing down even more each fight. These little moments where you see Hellenius trying to pressure Wilder, those little moments, those are openings for Wilder. When Chisora comes in, when he's moving in with his head movement, sometimes he might stop it just for a second, and Wilder could catch him. Now, this fight with Wilder and Hellenius was fucking holy shit, over 3 years ago already. So you can see Wilder's still, he still got a snap. He can still move. He still has speed on that right hand. So yeah, it can still come out of nowhere. But I want to look at Wilder's recent form as well. So let's look at some of these right hands here. So this right hand, put it speed, is different from that right hand. Okay. Now let me tell you something. Wilder's a lanky guy. The power of that punch is not coming from the mass or the strength of his muscles or whatever. It is the speed and the torque at which he throws it. So the fact that Wilder's losing some of that speed, which I think is evident in this fight, I actually want to look at the stoppage. So, yeah, Wilder's 40 years old at this point. We know some of these wars that he's been through. I really want to look at the stoppage. So look at these right hands he lands on this guy Herndon, who this guy's not a durable guy. He doesn't have a good chin, at least not like an exceptional chin, right? Look at these right hands. Look at some of these right hands. Okay, you see, he's kind of just letting that hook, just kind of trying to break Herndon down. Sneaks in a little jab there. So Wilder really, he looks slow too. He doesn't look like his old self. He looks a little bit more like he looks like just like an older man. I don't know, not nicest way to put it. But that was a strong right hand there. And he still has power. There's no doubt about it. But like I said before, man, Chisora is a durable guy. And this guy just beat Joe Joyce. And the question is, if the power isn't enough, if the power isn't enough, if whatever Wilder has left in terms of that speed and that right hand, if it's not enough to catch Chisora in these moments where Chisora is kind of barging in, and if Wilder can't get back and snap it like he used to, um, I think he can. That the punch that Wilder landed on Hellenius here, if he can land that type of punch on Chisora, I think he could hurt him. Well, I think he would definitely hurt him. But the question is, can Wilder throw a right hand like that? Still, I mean, we look at this right hand here. Let's look at this right hand one more time. So, Wilder's he looks slow. He doesn't look very sharp. See, like that right hand right there. That right hand. Now it's a different. I mean, it's still a powerful shot, but Herndon took it, and Chisora is a much tougher guy than Herndon. But it's all about how it lands, and maybe Wilder could find it in himself to land that trademark right hand like he used to just one more time. But my official prediction is I think Chisora is going to beat Wilder. I think Wilder isn't going to have it in him. I don't think Wilder has it anymore. Maybe if this fight happened a few years ago, Wilder would have had the power and the snap and the speed and the reflexes to catch Chisora while he's on his way in, like we've demonstrated. But I don't think Wilder has that snap anymore. I think it's gonna be a pretty bad night for Wilder. Um, Wilder's a tough dude. I don't think Chisora's going to get an easy stoppage. Hell, it might not even be a stoppage. People might be pretty surprised. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be the first person to say I think Chisora is going to beat Wilder by a decision because Wilder's a much taller guy, so Chisora he's going to be barging in and landing his shots, and Wilder's he could get out of the way enough. And he could move around, be defensive. If he could just maintain that, I think Chisora is going to just outpoint him. I think he's going to rough him up and outpoint him. That's my prediction. I don't want the video to drag on much too longer, but I'm gonna say it here first. Chisora beats Wilder by decision, unanimous decision, 117 111. All right, that was a long video, 33 minutes, but y'all take it easy. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day.